Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next week, 10 days. In today's video, we'll also have a look at the CFSV2 for the next month. I'm going to start off having a look at the situation in the stratosphere. So quite a bit to cram in to today's video. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. This link to articles on the page. Just have a browse which is to click through the links. You're going to help us to make the website. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads, both pages, which own content. You watch them, you can close them back up again. It does all help to pay for gas lobbies. So this is the latest temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole in the stratosphere. It's one of the highest levels of the atmosphere. And we see that the black line here tells us where the temperature's been with the stratosphere, as opposed to the grey line, which is the trend through the season. We start in September there, we go through to the summer. So you can see around the end of January, inside of February, we have this stratospheric warming, and then we cool things down through the first half of February. Where we stand right now is very close to average. However, I think you will see this black line ticking up a bit over the next few days. It'll start to move upwards as we approach the latter stages of the month. This temperature at 30 HPA, it's a little bit lower down, and you can see that there it's actually a little bit warmer compared to 10 HPA, although nothing like the sort of level that we got to at the start of February, when again we had that really quite significant stratospheric warming. The GFS model is forecasting temperatures to lift up in the stratosphere at 10 HPA over the next few days. So this is the situation right now. As I say, these blue colours are where we've got those cold temperatures in the stratosphere. They're around average really now. We're coming to the end of the season, so even if we don't get a sudden stratospheric warming, temperatures will gradually start to rise in the stratosphere as we move out of winter and into the spring, and then eventually reach a peak in the summer. You'll notice this area of yellow here over Siberia. That's the next warming that's occurring across Siberia. As we run through the next day or so, we actually find those red colours reappearing across Siberia in the second half of the week, starting to pushing towards the North Pole. And we get another fairly significant warming occurring in the stratosphere at 10 HPA over the North Pole in the second half of the week, and running up to the weekend and the end of the month, finishing up with really quite a warm stratosphere. Temperature at 10 HPA. And in the extended range of the GFS, we actually warm things up again and push another fairly significant warming into the top of the pole. So it continues to be as we've had it really throughout the winter, which is very regularly pushing these warm temperatures into the stratosphere at 10 HPA, but never quite reaching the level of the sudden stratospheric warming. That warming that occurred at the end of January, the start of February, just about managed to get to the level of a sudden stratospheric warming, but it was very much on the borderline of just being a stratospheric warming and being a sudden stratospheric warming. And again, we see this continuing over the next week or two, that we do get very regular pushes of temperature, warm temperature into the stratosphere, but again, never quite reaching the threshold of a sudden stratospheric warming. But we'll keep you posted about it, of course, over the next few days. Now, we did a couple of videos yesterday looking at the chance of cold weather into the start of March. We've still got these possibilities for cold weather into the start of March. The GFS operational runs this morning have backed off that, but the GFS ensembles are still showing some really quite cold ensemble members into the start of March. So let's deal with the temperature first of all. This red line here is 30-year temperature average, very significantly above average at the moment. We're going to be going cooler at the end of the week, just temporarily, and then over weekend we'll lift those temperatures up again. Now, it's around the 1st of March, interestingly, just here, first day of March, first day of spring, but we've got quite a lot of uncertainty, actually. It's about a 50-50 split now, I think, between the ensemble members that are going cold. A couple of them do go really very cold through that first week of March. And the ensemble members that are staying milder. And we can include this morning's operational GFS in those ensemble members that are staying milder. But when you've got a 50-50 split like that, it really is in the realm of it could go either way. It means there's something like from the warmest to the coldest temperatures in the upper atmosphere. There's something like a 20-degree temperature differential there, so probably a bit more, but a 20-degree temperature differential. So it's very uncertain to say what's happening as we go through into the start of March, but the potential is still there to turn things quite a bit colder. In terms of precipitation, we're going to have increasing amounts of rain coming up over the next few days. It's going to be stormy on Thursday. I think the UK Met Office has just named the next storm. I think it's going to be Storm Doris on Thursday. That could bring gusts of wind up to 50, 70 miles an hour. There'll be heavy rain in with that as well. And these unsettled conditions continue into next week as well, probably increasingly so. The temperature anomaly for the next week is coming out for most parts of Europe milder than average, but Scandinavia is turning colder, and it's beginning to turn a bit cooler on these charts for Scotland as well. For the rest of the UK and Ireland, though, still a little bit milder than average. We might find these trending colder over the next few days. Most parts of Europe still coming out milder than average, including down to the southeast. I've had a very cold winter in the southeast of Europe, but the next week is going to be a lot milder there. First burst of spring, perhaps for the Balkans and southeastern Europe. Precipitation anomaly is looking wetter than average. I haven't been able to say that much through this winter across northern Europe, so going to be quite a wet week coming up. The driest precipitation anomalies are down across southern and southwestern parts of Europe. This is for GFS for Saturday then. We have a little cold snap after Storm Doris late Thursday into Friday, but that very quickly is out of the way. By Saturday, we're just back into wet and windy weather with low pressure dominating in the Atlantic. We keep things unsettling to Sunday. There's a little bit of a push of pressure, a little bit of a ridge down across the south, so it might be a little bit milder there, but for the north and west, that looks unsettled with showery rain. Inside of next week, turning increasingly unsettled again, low pressure coming back in across the country, bringing quite a bit of rain through the early part of next week. And then that low pressure slinks away to the south, and we get this build of pressure from the north and from the west. Now, this is the point around the 1st of March, actually, the middle of next week. This is the point where we might set up a colder spell. This particular run of the GFS just wants the ridge to be through the UK, not going up to the north and anywhere near Scandinavia or Iceland or Greenland. So consequently, it's fairly chilly under this ridge. It'll probably be night frost, but it's not overly cold, and there will be a lot of dry weather as well. By Thursday, the 2nd of March, that ridge is going to be east of us, and we're pulling back, as has been patterned throughout the winter, pulling back these east to southeasterly winds, which are not particularly cold winds, because the high pressure, again, it's not centering over central and northern Scandinavia. You're pulling in a real easterly wind. But we know from the ensembles, we just looked at those, this is one of the milder options, and there are several significantly colder options at play within the GFS ensembles for the early part of March, that first week of March. We move through to day 10, which is Friday, 3rd of March. And again, we've still got this high pressure to the east, but it's not particularly cold. The air is coming up again from the southeast rather than a cold sort of northeasterly type scenario. And as low pressure begins to move up from the south, probably turning more unsettled across the southern parts of the country. East WF looks like this for Saturday. Wet and windy weather coming in from off the Atlantic. That continues into the start of next week, where it stays very unsettled. This trough is slinking down across the country the first half of next week. It's quite mild to start off with quite a bit of rain. But by the time we go through to the middle of next week, yes, we are opening the door to a colder northerly wind. We didn't get that with the latest run of the GFS. But it doesn't last all that long on the ECM, actually, and we're trying to bat winds back into the west as we go through to the second half of next week, so low pressure begins to move in. Although we have got still a bit of a ridge trying to get going across Scandinavia, so that could go either way, really. By day 10 on that particular chart, we are back into mild weather, but not all that far, possibly having something a bit colder through the second half of next week. So I think next week's weather is still very uncertain. It starts off really unsettled and fairly mild. We probably get a cold snap around Wednesday, turns colder then, and then where we go after that, do we just revert back to a mild Atlantic flow, or do we set up a cold spell? Well, I think that is very uncertain, and we'll know more as the week progresses. Finally, CFSV2 for the next month. These are 500 millibar high economies, broken down into week periods. The first week period going from the 21st through to the 27th of February. We find we've got low pressure in the coming week to the north. We've got a ridge, which is down to the south of the country, just there. And yes, we're bringing those westerlies in across the UK. So it looks unsettled, increasingly so, potentially a bit stormy from the north, fairly mild as we run up to the end of the month. Now, this takes us into the start of March. This is a transitional period, potentially to something colder. This is the 28th of February through to the 6th of March. This one actually doesn't look all that cold. We've got the ridge to the south and to the east of the country as well. The trough is being blocked in the Atlantic, but we're still on the mild side of the jet stream, doing something a bit like that. So whilst it turns drier there through the first days of March, it isn't overly cold on that run of the CFSV2. In fact, it's probably fairly mild. However, we go through to week 3, which is the 7th through to the 13th of March, and now we've got the ridge up to the north of us with low pressure underneath it. So that one does look as though it could be quite a lot colder. The jet stream would be on a southerly track, and we'd be pulling the wind down, I would have thought, from the east or the northeast. So that one could be a lot colder there as we go into the second week of March. It's a bit delayed, not the first week of March, but it's the second week of March that the CFS wants to bring something quite a lot colder in. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 14th through to the 20th. We've still got blocking around Greenland, but the way low pressure is out to west of us, and we build the heights to the south. So the way it's all lining up is that we're probably bringing in milder air from the southwest again on that one into the third week of March. So we do get a colder interlude in the second week of March. Probably doesn't last long by the third week of March, and the fourth week of March, I should say, it's turning quite a lot milder there. So it's a bit uncertain where this is going, I think. It may be that the shorter range one's been a bit over the top with trying to get something colder in for the opening days of March. Might delay that and push it back a bit more, let's say into the second week of March. Probably it breaks down, though, by the third week, so probably only a cold snap. That's how it's looking this morning. We'll update you again tomorrow, of course. 5-day forecast coming up tomorrow, but we'll also have a look ahead for the week to 10-day period as well. So come back for all of that tomorrow. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.